On Monday, she takes a walk with Johnny. On Tuesday, she has a talk with Jim. On Wednesday, she likes to dance with Tommy.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of My Index to Sex. I'm Lynn Ferguson, a big vanilla Scottish woman living in the San Fernando Valley, which is periodically very hot, but rarely in a sexy way. And I'm joined by my pal, Sephe Haven, at one point America's #1 escort. In each episode, Sephe delves into the index box of all of her past clients, and I ask her all the questions everyone wants answered. I'm lying. That's what I should be doing. What I'll actually be doing is assigning the anonymous client on the card a name and clumsily trying to understand a world which is completely foreign to me. Anyway, glad you could join us.
On Thursday, she takes a chance with Tim.
Hello. Hello, how are you? So how far through the box are we now, your index box? Are we far? Have we even...
We haven't hardly chipped the surface of the box.
Really? All right, so have you got someone exciting?
I think so. We were talking about something the other day, and I kind of pulled this card. It's an L.
Oh, L. Have we done Lionel? Did we do a Lionel?
I don't think we did a Lionel. You could name him Lionel.
Oh, no, wait a minute. We have done a Lionel. Episode 1, Lionel the Begrudging Architect. I guess I just must like the name Lionel. But no, we have to call him something else.
Well, maybe we could go with the H for his last name.
Oh, right. So let's go for an H, right?
Yeah.
And his name is Hubert.
Okay.
Hubert.
Okay.
Mr. Hubert. I like that. That has a formality to it, Mr. Hubert.
Yes. Well, he was a developer.
Oh, what kind of things did he develop? Or was he a developer in and out of the bedroom? Ooh, look, I've been talking to you too much. I'm starting to do sassy talk. What kind of developer was he?
I don't know. I wrote doors, but I don't know what that means.
He was a door developer? Mr. Hubert's developing doors? I wonder what kind of doors can you develop, right? Because, I mean, you can get the swing doors, you can get the revolving doors. I guess you could get, like, the Star Trek doors.
Sliding doors.
Sliding doors. I wonder.
In and out, in and out, in and out.
Was that how Mr. Hubert was?
I don't know. I'll read what I wrote. I don't remember him, so I think I've only, on the back it says I only saw him one time. So maybe he didn't like me either. But that can't be right, actually, because I know I saw him more than that. Maybe this was at a time when I was drinking too much champagne.
Oh, did you go through a little period of time? Or where you did the champagne too much?
There was a period of time that, I think I told you, it was hard to eat anything.
Yeah.
Because you had to be kind of naked a lot. And so I was afraid to eat anything. So I would order a case of champagne with Clicquot, keep it in my refrigerator, and that would be breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And so, and cigarettes, because that was,
Hey, Sephe, I have to ask you a question. It's a personal one.
Okay.
Didn't it make you farty?
No, only food.
It doesn't make you... Champagne doesn't make you farty?
No, that's why I have had it, because the food can make you
farty.
So I didn't want to eat anything solid. So there was a time, though, that I didn't eat, that I had a lot of champagne.
Right.
And so it could have been that time when I stopped writing things down as much. I was like, oh, well, I'm having fun now.
I'll remember him. Who could forget Mr. Hubert and his developing doors? Of course I'll remember him. I don't need notes for Mr. Hubert.
But I wrote some things, and I don't remember him, but I remember his wife.
Oh, hello.
I know. That's why I thought about this. So I wrote, he's very contrary. He likes to not like everything. So he probably came in and said, I don't like the lights this way. I don't like the music. Can you change this?
Oh, he sounds charming.
Yeah, very contrary. I remember that part. I wrote octopus. Oh. A bit difficult, meaning that
he's got all tentacles. Did he have tentacles in the end of his arms? He
was all over me. And I was like, oh. So I think it was probably like a batting session where I was like hitting this hand and hitting that hand and swatting here. Like, stop.
Mr. Hubert and his tentacles. You know what? See if Mr. Hubert, who the octopus, how many doors could he open at the same time?
So I wrote, he came here 15 minutes late.
Oh.
That's not good.
Would you charge for that? Would you say if somebody turned up 15 minutes late, would they still be paying for that 15 minutes that they weren't here?
Well, I think it depended to me if I was booked right afterwards. So usually what I tried to do was, at this point in time, I was on my own in my apartment. So I tried to book people at 2-hour appointments and give myself at least an hour or two in between to shower and change and reset the stage sort of thing.
Yeah.
But if I had somebody within the next hour, if I only gave myself an hour, then I would just stick to the exact time. But if I had time, I would go overtime because I'm a nice girl.
Do you know, I'm already panicking on your behalf. Like an hour to sort of change between one guy and, for some people, it takes them like a good 2 years to cope like with moving from one guy to another. Whereas you're literally talking about doing it in an hour. That must be quite high pressure.
It was, in my head, I used to hear, do you remember the music in Pirates of Penzance? And, I am the very model of a modern major general. That
Oh, yeah.
patter song. And in my head, I would have a patter song going. So the minute the gentleman left, I would close the door and then turn on all the lights because I had all this candles lit, hundreds of them. So I'd turn on all the lights and then blow. And I'd just be blowing out all of these candles, And then I would do this big sweep around the room. So a couple circles. So I would grab all the glasses and anything that we had that was needed to be washed or thrown out and grab all that and move it to the kitchen. And then I'd go back and whip all the sheets off the top of the bed and then throw the pillows down and go back and spray the room.
Remake the bed?
Well, I didn't remake the whole bed. I had this beautiful comforter. So on the top of the comforter, I had like a sheet, that was, so I would change that and, change the surface stuff. So everybody had fresh sheets. The regular hotel.
Wow.
I know. And then go back and then put everything back, wash the dishes, and then change the music, reset the whole stage as if, you had an hour between shows.
Yeah.
And how the stagehands come on and reset everything. So I did all that. And then I had to do myself. So, it was into the bathroom and wash up. And
were you ever tempted to get someone to come in and clean for you? Were you ever tempted to get like a stagehand in essence?
Well, not in between my calls, Lynn.
No. Well, just because I would be like, because then you could just sort of sit and, smoke a cigarette or something and go,
I lit a cigarette in the kitchen as I was making my rounds, lit a cigarette, run around, take another drag. I'm glad I quit smoking, but it was such a savior at the time. So I forgot why we were talking about that.
We're talking about Mr. Hubert and he was contrary.
Right. So, it was tight in between, but I would let him stay longer if anybody was late. But usually people were never late. The only people who were late with me were people I went on real life dates with, Like a guy would be like, I'll meet you at 8 in such and such a club. And then you get there and he'd be like texting you, I'm running late. I'm thinking, no, not one of my clients would dare be late.
Did you find then that you started to hold men to a higher standard? So that in essence, if you were dating someone and they had behaviour that your clients wouldn't do, you're like, well, screw that, I'm not dating you anymore.
Yeah.
Like, did you find that you had higher standards in terms of how you dated?
Yeah, I think my clients taught me how to, because before I was an escort, I would go on a date with a guy and he'd buy me some, fish dinner and then expect to have sex.
Oh, it's sexy.
Oh, I bought you grouper. Oh, well, then I went out for that.
Here's the snapper for you. Let me show you my code.
You feel guilty. You're like, oh, God, he did. He went out of his way. And he paid like $100 for the dinner I have to put out. And if he was late, and then you'd be like, why is he late? And why this and why that? And after I started working, I saw how good men could treat you if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if they're not treating you like that in real life, then they don't want to.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually, because there is a sort of thing where we make an assumption that men are... Like that book that came out, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus.
Oh,
that really annoyed... You liked that book?
I did because I liked... Why did it annoy you?
It annoyed me because I get annoyed at anything that's general. right?
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, are we just talking straight white, men of a certain age? Or are we talking, homosexual men? Or like, we don't all behave the same way. So I didn't love it. But you liked it.
I liked that the generalization of it, actually, what you didn't like. I liked that it's like astrology, it's not, you can't pinpoint a person, but there are general things about certain signs that you go, well, that's true about that sign. Not everybody reacts in exactly the same way, but there's a lot of stuff to that. So I guess I liked it for that reason.
Yeah. So did Mr. Hubert with the octopus with the revolving doors, did you have his star sign?
Yes, I have it here. I wrote, he was very short and sad and scared. And he was born July 2nd, so he would be a Cancer. And he likes to talk. Okay.
Oh.
I don't remember what we talked about, but here was the thing. Because he was an octopus,
Yeah.
I found my time with him a little difficult and stressful and annoying, because if a man touches me all over while I'm working, like messes my hair, and I have to start over, so I don't want them on my hair or my makeup, and I want to touch them because I got a lot of people that are going to touch me.
Yeah.
So I want to do touching, keep everything, so an octopus can be annoying. But so I didn't love seeing this person, but eventually what happened was at one point I got a phone call. At that time, in the olden days, we had these voice message machines and we had landlines. So this was a landline. And somehow the wife found this phone number. And I finished working at one point, and I guess I was on a break. I don't know. And I got one of the phone calls was from this woman, and she was furious.
Oh my God.
And her name was Karen, which we didn't have Karens in those days, but she sounded like a Karen, And she's screaming into the phone that I'm a big whore and I'm a big slut and keep away from her husband. And, I didn't go get your husband. I wasn't at a bar. I'm not his mistress.
Well, she didn't leap on him when he was walking down the street and go, there's the octopus for me. Hey, sweetie, show me your doors. Right? No.
Right. At first, it was really scary. It left me shaken. And she was saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to call the police on you. And I thought, well, how is she going to do that, first of all? But it was just scary. And it was sad because I could hear her sadness and her frustration. And I don't want to make another woman feel sad and bad. So I could see that. But then she started calling every day.
What?
And just yelling and screaming at me. And I got about the third or fourth time, I can't remember, I ended up calling him and saying, listen, call off your wife. Seriously. I don't remember what happened exactly. There was a break, and then he called to see me again. And I wouldn't see him because I don't,
want to deal with a wife.
Yeah, exactly. So I asked a girlfriend of mine, I said, what do I do? And she said, just don't call her back. Don't answer. See if you can block her number. And then she made a joke and she said, it's so weird how like the guy is horrible. And she's married to it. Should be really super grateful that for at least an hour we're taking him off her hands. She probably doesn't want to sleep with him. He's an octopus. Like, he's terrible in bed. He's a sad sack. She should be like writing you a thank you note. I thought, yeah, I'm going to call her back and say, you owe me a thank you note. It turned out that was kind of a sentiment that a lot of girls had after a while. It was like, because people would say, don't you feel bad about being with married men?
Yeah.
And I would think, oh, I don't want to get married to a man who would see an escort for sure. I get that. And I would never go after somebody's boyfriend or husband. This was just my business. They called me, they came to me. And really the service wasn't about romancing them out of their marriage or taking all their money. It was about a set price that he had in his savings or wherever he had stashed his play money. I not involved at all in their marriage. He probably went home and slept with his wife that night because he was so excited.
You bring up a really interesting point there, though. So in relationships, you would never have a relationship with a man who slept with escorts. Would you or wouldn't you?
I mean, what I meant by that was I would want to be in a relationship where we were faithful to each other.
Yeah.
If that was what we decided on. I mean, if we decided we're going to have a swinging marriage, then we decided on that. But if we've said we're going to be monogamous, then I would prefer that because there's trust, right?
Yeah.
But I would never want to hurt a marriage that way. So if he went to see an escort, I think to me it would be safer than him going to see a stripper, perhaps. There's something about both sex workers, but very different.
Really? In what way?
Well, it's just different personalities are attracted to for different reasons.
Right.
And same with girls who choose to work on the streets as opposed to higher end escorting. And some girls who there's a middle ground, like they don't like higher end escorting because it takes a lot of, you really have to be there. You have to be a person in their lives that cares and that listens and talks. And it's a lot of like energy, as opposed to a girl who goes in for an hour. She goes, she takes off her coat, she looks great, she gets her money, she does whatever sexy thing she does, and she's out of there and she can forget about it. And then she can go have a burger. And I prefer relationships that last, longer period. We get to know each other and it's dinners and talking and things like that.
How did you get there, though? This is the thing that I want to ask, because did it, like, we've talked before about how you ended up being an escort, but like the specific type of escorting that you did, right? Where did you find that was the right flavour for you? I mean, did you vary it at any point, or sort of land on your feet and just go, this is the way to do it, and I'm not going to do anything else?
Oh, God. Landed on my feet. I know if
I know, I was going to say, I nearly did a fanar there, and then I was like,
That's when I got up off my knees. So no, I landed the first time with the really good agency. So that was a little bit higher end escorting. But then she fired me at one point. It was a silly thing, but and so I started to look for other sex work because I thought, it's got to be all the same. So I worked for, I think it was a day in a brothel, which was horrible. It just wasn't for me. Whereas those girls love it. That's what they love about it. And then I tried.
Is it like it because it's community or something?
Well, it's also, there's not much intimacy, and some girls don't want intimacy, and some girls do. And even escorts, some of them like to play fantasy, and they are this personality, and they dive through this fantasy, and the person that the gentleman's meeting is not exactly the same person that they are.
Right.
They don't let them land in who they are. Whereas I like to just be completely genuine. I like the intimacy of it. But strippers, it's a different thing. First of all, they're so athletic and talented, and they walk around in like 7-inch heels and, dance in that. And on poles, it's astonishing. But they also, so one night, another escort and I were asked by this guy to go into a strip club with him. And we'd never been into a strip club. So we were in the strip club, and she and I went to the bathroom together in the strip club, and we're sitting in separate stalls. And she says, "This is just terrible. These women are horrible." And I said, "I know. They treat men like wallets." She said, "I know. It's just they don't even see the men. They just see wallets." And we're sitting there bitching about this. And then she says, it's kind of funny because, sitting there, So it was just a different type of person. And then there's dominatrixes and people who know how to role play, and they are into certain fetishes, which I don't know how to do very well. So there's like specialties. And then there's the girls in porn. Nowadays, there's also the camcorder girls.
Oh, the thingy cams, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the, what do you call it? That site, where people put up their pictures and have kind of this, anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I don't really. See, the thing is I'm so vanilla. The reason I find, like, when we discuss things so fascinating is because it's not really an area that I know anything about. I did a TV show a long time ago called Frank Stubbs Promotes, and it was set in Soho. And in that show, I was like the madam of a brothel. And so I sat in the opening, sat in the foyer of the real life brothel with a red PVC catsuit on with a zipper over the vagina, right? So you could basically just God. And I'm sitting there and I can see the film crew like in the distance, right? But the people who are wandering up the street, they don't. And actually, it was like a weird thing being checked out. for it, where like people would go, well, am I going to get enough bang for my buck there from the big blonde woman with the red PVC and the zipper? So no, I really don't know. And most people, I would think, although I could be totally wrong, don't know that there is a difference between escorts, prostitutes, and strippers, because it's just all is like one area where you go, oh, danger. So I find it fascinating that there are differences. It's funny because when I do story work, I have a client who is a stripper who is very dismissive of prostitution. She's like, that sleeping with people for money, who does that?
Right.
And it's like, you go, there's this whole other subculture I knew nothing about, nothing at all.
So true. It's so true. Oh my God. That reminded me of, I was on a call with there was one guy, he was young and he was an investment banker, he had lots of money. This was the 90s. And he used to just have girls over. And so I was always one that was over there. And one day he went to a strip club before and he picked up a couple strippers and brought them back too. And if you were walking into the room, Lynn, you would probably sense that there was a difference between these girls, but you might not know what it was.
Yeah.
But the second that all the escorts and the strippers were in one, we knew exactly who each other were. We knew exactly like, oh, she's a stripper. And she knew exactly I was an escort. There's just a difference in who we are and what we do and the flavor we give out. It's just there's an intimacy and a warmth to escorts of that level of escorting that seems like your girlfriends and friends, they're friends, and you're here to play. With strippers, it's always like, what are we doing? And how much money is it for each thing? What's going on here? This is not what I usually do.
Yeah.
They're stepping outside their comfort zone. Because in the club, I know things go on. I don't know exactly, and I shouldn't speak for strippers because I don't exactly know their world. But most of the time, it's about, give me the money, give me some money, give me some money. Whereas we have a set price up front.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
I've already paid. Yeah, whereas strippers are always like, so I'm here. Okay, you want me to do that? So how much is I don't know. There was some sort of a gimme thing, but maybe that's only the strippers that I knew at that period of time.
Also, though, I suppose there is a thing about if you're stripping, it's much more a performance. Like, I do think there is definitely an athleticism to it, right?
Yeah.
And although there is a performance with escorting, I get maybe in terms of if you were doing it, if they were doing classes on it in Juilliard, they would say that stripping is more like theatrical performance, whereas escorting is for camera because it's close up. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's a really good analogy.
Yeah. Maybe you need to get to Juilliard and tell them that you are going to do a performance course on what you need for like stripping and escorting. Well, because the thing is about it is because the world's so gone to rat shit financially and everybody's getting fired and everything. And then I do look at this stuff where I'm like, wow, how long has prostitution been going on for? It is forever, right? You're like, whoa. I think I sort of personally, the idea doesn't bother me at all until it came down to just the whole dealing with people. I don't think I could be an escort in the same way that I don't think I could be a bus driver, and that I just couldn't be dealing with so many people.
Really?
Yeah.
You take people, when you have students for storytelling or work with story, that you're dealing with all different people's stories all the time. So you sit down with somebody.
Not much more in the way that you are doing your escorting, though, in that that you go into a very intense journey with a very small amount of people. If you are doing bus driving, you're dealing with all people who are all in different parts of their journey and heading somewhere else. And I guess that's kind of, what stripping would be like, I suppose. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing how really, when it comes to, the more that I talk to you about stuff, the more I go, well, it's just a job, isn't it? Just a job.
It's work. Yeah, it is. It's work. But it's also, you could make it good. The funny thing is, if I was walking down the street in my neighborhood when I was living. You wouldn't know that I was an escort. You wouldn't know if I living in my building. You wouldn't even know. I look so normal. I don't know. People have an idea.
You look gorgeous. You do look gorgeous. People would go, oh, she's gorgeous. Yeah.
No, but I think people would just think, and the way I could always tell an escort in a hotel, for instance, is normal people dress down sometimes. Escorts always, higher end escorts always dress to the, fab. They're like in Chanel, or, they look at 2:00 in the morning, they're walking through the hotel looking, Jackie O, glamorous.
That's funny.
And I think part of it is a rebound thing of rebounding against the stereotype, because everyone wants to say, oh, she's a hooker. So they're expecting us to walk in, that Julia Roberts first part of Pretty Woman, wearing a wig and a short dress and your torn stockings and red shoes or whatever. So I think there's a part of us that goes exact opposite way. We're more ladylike. We swear less. We wear nicer clothes. We look the absolute part of a lady. So you would never say, oh, she's a whore.
Do you know what the thing is the Pretty Woman thing always annoyed me.
Oh.
Always real. Oh, there's another thing. It's the men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Pretty Woman thing, I'm like, wait a minute. He's the guy that has to hire a prostitute because nobody likes him, right, enough to go out with him, and yet she's the bad guy, right? That he sort of rescues her. You're like, no. I had a problem with that. And the bit that where I had a real problem, actually, this shows how vindictive I can be. Yeah. There's a scene where she's in the bathroom.
Yes.
And he thinks that she's taken drugs. And he goes in there and he's furious at it. And it turns out that she's flossing her teeth.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I can't believe that someone like you would floss your teeth. I'm like, what is she, like a hamster or something like that? What do you think? That that woman isn't a real person?
Yes.
It just, on so many ways. Like, I could do a whole dissertation on why Pretty Woman is a whole pile of pish, but I wouldn't, because other people are happy with it.
You know why I liked it? Why? I'll play devil's advocate.
Why?
For that very reason. Because yes, you're absolutely right. Why would that be such a shock? But that, especially at that time, which was the early 90s, that's how people saw escorts. They thought it was drugs, and I never did drugs, and I never, all the things. So what I liked that Gary Marshall did was he brought up all the stereotypes up front, that obviously she's doing drugs, and then we discover she's not.
Although, are you telling me, my friend, that your clients stereotypically look like Richard Gere?
Some of them did.
Mr. Hubert, the octopus with the revolving door, right?
He didn't, but I would say 50% of the men that I saw, especially at this period of time, which was when it was in the 90s, and it was when I was on my own. I'd say 50% were good looking, and I wouldn't mind dating them if that was up for grabs,
Yeah.
So in a way, like, I have girlfriends now who are my age then, and they're all, they want to get laid, and they just want to have somebody to, they're horny. They want to have sex, but they can't just pick somebody and do it. And I thought, well, yeah, I spent that whole period of time always getting laid, like whether I wanted to or not, but, always having sex. So when I look back, I think, did I use my youth well? I didn't let it go by,
You certainly had a fair amount of traffic, Sephe.
It was a revolving door.
Like Mr. Hubert.
Like Mr. Hubert.
Mr. Hubert and his revolving door. The thing you said about him too was that he was sad. He was a sad person. Do you think that him and his wife just weren't communicating and that's why he was sad? Or do you think that, what did you get from that in the end?
Well, some people are going through something, maybe, but other people just have a way of looking at the world that, that Eeyore way of looking at the world, just woe is me, and everything is like, he obviously was contrary, because I first wrote very contrary, likes not to like things. Like, that must have been, he must have walked in. I mean, I've had several like that, so I can't say it was definitely him, but I've had several people they've walked into this beautiful space with little tiny tea lights and curtains of velvet and, just glass and just beauty everywhere, like a Scheherazade tent, and they come in and the first thing they say is, it's too dark in here. Or you're going to have that music on the whole time.
Oh, wow.
And it's Madeleine Perrault or something very nebulous in the background. Or just candles I don't like the candles. Blow them out. There's 150 candles. Just could be contrary. Like, who comes into somebody else's space that's obviously set it up for them and is rude like that?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, your clients, on average, are not Richard Gere, right?
Well, I don't know. Some of them were. I mean, I've never had a Richard Gere where I had, somebody, when I was in the business then, come in and say, I'm taking you away from all this. I've had men come in and say, oh, I really want to spend a weekend with you. And then we do that. But I've never had somebody, climb up my fire escape and rescue me. And make all my dreams come true.
Well, also it's that thing as well. I guess it's one of my resentments about Pretty Woman too, where I go, maybe she was quite happy doing the job that she was doing and didn't need rescued. Do you know what I mean?
I think in that movie, Vivian was her name.
Yeah.
I think she wanted to do more with her life and she couldn't afford it. Like, I know that when he supposedly rescued her, she went back to school and she started taking classes. And then you saw the difference between her and Kit, the other character, because Kit would have spent it on whatever. And she was like, okay, now that I have money, I'm going to actually do what I wanted to do, which was go back to school and make something of my life.
Yeah.
I could see why you're disgruntled with it.
I am disgruntled. And maybe I'm just disgruntled. Do you know what? Maybe today I am like Mr. Hubert, the revolving door man, where I've come in and I just go, I'm not agreeing with stuff. I'm just being nippy about stuff.
I mean, I think Gary Marshall wanted to make a Cinderella story, and I appreciated it because I thought he made her look good. And in the 90s, we didn't look good on any TV show or any movie. There was very little empathy, and it was dangerous in those days. If somebody found out, I could be evicted or I could be arrested, and so many things. Yeah, and like these wives calling and thinking, well, I could just call her and threaten her because they have something over me, which is that my business is illegal. Would they call a mistress? I don't know. But they certainly felt like, well, this whore, I can certainly scare her.
And when really the person she probably wanted to shout at was the octopus.
That's right.
And there's revolving doors. It's interesting, even just the concept of this, and that the sort of point of your job or what you were aiming to achieve for other people was relaxation and pleasure or whatever, right? Like the candles and the Scheherazade and all that. But actually trying to do that must have been scary as shit at times. It was because you're like, I could get evicted or the blah, blah, blah.
It was scary. Every day I have a line in something I wrote where, every single day I got up, if I was going to see somebody new that I'd never met before, I didn't know if I was going to jail that night.
Oh, wow.
So I started to put things near the door, like a sweater. I was like, if you're going to do this job, wear a sweater. Because you just never know. Kind of like a go to jail kit just in case, like I'm sure some people have it about going to the hospital. In case I have to go to the hospital, I want these pajamas near.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Like most people would have an earthquake kit or something over here in California, but you're like, nope, I need to have a going to jail kit. That's it. That's the escort prepper in you, Sephe.
That's right. You never know.
You never know.
And that was terrible that you had to feel like, here I'm planning for the day. Like anyone else goes to work, I get myself up and get made up and make them, do the calls and make everything that everybody else does for their job and make it really nice and bring somebody pleasure. And then I could go to jail.
Oh, and you know who wouldn't be visiting you?
My client? Who?
Mr. Hubert.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The octopus would not. No, not.
Cause she's the sweetheart of 6 other guys.
Well, that's all from us for this episode. And I have to say, I feel I've learned a lot this week. Who knew there was a difference between strippers and escorts? Or that in some jobs it's wise to prepare a could be going to jail tonight kit? I've learned that you never mess with the wife of an octopus, but the most surprising thing I've learned is that two people can completely disagree on men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and Pretty Women, and still be good friends. It's an extraordinary world, people. I've been Lynn Ferguson talking to Sephe Haven. Join us again next time for another episode of My Index to Sex.
Bozo of mine, 'cause she's the sweetheart of 6 other guys.
You have been listening to My Index to Sex, produced by Ferdal LLC. The music was performed by Chesney Hawkes, and you can learn more about Sephe Haven at sephehaven.com. Go to mitspodcast.com to check out the show notes for more details, including how to stay in touch, give feedback, and ask questions. All the best.
Sunday's my only time with that bozo of mine, 'cause she's the sweetheart of 6 other guys.